Hi, everyone, and welcome back to 7EDU's weekly open class. I hope that you're all having a great weekend and a good Sunday. If you are new here to our webinar, welcome. 7EDU helps students with test preparation, college counseling, and overall academic help on all school subjects. Our goal is to provide you with quality guidance to students, unlock their unique capabilities, and develop confidence and success. We hold our online open classes like these to help students and parents on various subjects, such as APs, SATs, ACTs, and overall general tips and tricks for students. So in today's open class, we will focus on the AP Calculus exams. AP classes are taken mostly during the junior and senior years of high school, but if you are a sophomore who has completed prerequisites and feel that you're comfortable, you can also take the AP exam. Dr. Yan will be taking the lead today and helping you ace the AP Calculus exam. Dr. Yan is a tenured college professor, a former postdoc at Stanford University, and a data scientist at Coursera. With over 18 years of experience mentoring her students, Dr. Yan has guided students to realize their potential and increase not only their test scores, but also their problem-solving skills. You can see on the bottom her proven track record of helping students increase their SAT math scores. So she is a very skilled instructor for mathematics and statistics. This is our class outline for today. Dr. Yan will provide you with an overview of the two AP Calculus exams, along with the content or topics that will be covered on these exams. Afterwards, she will run through some sample problems with you, go over some common mistakes that students may make on these exams, and then the tips that she has for you for preparing for these exams. And if you do have any questions throughout the class, please send them into the Q&A box or the chat box, and I will compile them at the very end so we can ask Dr. Yan some of these questions. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and then let Dr. Yan take the lead right here. Hi, Dr. Yan.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you for the introduction. Actually, when Kathy showed you the slide, which shows my record of teaching SAT Math and SAT Math 2, I think we should have also included our track record of teaching AP Calculus. So among our students who have been teaching for the last about 10 years, and 80% of students received 5 in AP Calculus AB, and 90% of our students received 5 in AP Calculus BC. Okay, so let me share my slide. Okay, yeah, so this is basically the outline of the topics I will be going over today. So we'll start giving a big kind of overview of the two tests, like for students who are planning to take tests in May. Okay, every year College Board may make some minor changes to the test structure and the type of questions. Okay, but this is what's going to happen this year. So basically, there are two sections. I mean, all AP tests have two sections. The first section is basically multiple choice sections, and which is further decomposed into two parts, part A and part B, as you can see here. And then in section 2 is section 2 is full response section, where students have to write their own answers. Okay, so if you look at the number of questions you will have, you can see that in section 1, part A, students will be asked to answer 30 problems within 60 minutes, and then followed by, that part actually is calculator not allowed, which means the student cannot use their calculator in that part. So basically section 1, part A, and then followed by part B, multiple choice part B, where the student actually allowed to use calculator. However, there's only 15 questions here with a total of 45 minutes for the 15 questions. And after section 1, students are usually given a short break, about 5-minute break, before they start working on the multiple choice section, before they start working on the free response section. And the free response section also is divided into two parts, A and B. And in part A, there are 2 problems, and the students are allowed to use calculator in that part with 30 minutes in total. And then finally, the test finished with the free response session without calculator allowed. with 4 problems in that part, totally 60 minutes. So if you look at the total duration of the test, it's 3 hours and 15 minutes, not including the short break between the 2 sections. Okay, so in fact, most of AP tests are around 3 hours.
Oh, excuse me, Dr. Yan, do you mind sharing the slide that you are currently on? Is showing the sample problems for the audience right now.
Oh, interesting. So let me see. And let me reshare the screen. Maybe I showed the wrong one. Sorry, this is another problem. Give me a second.
No worries.
Okay, so this is the one I should be sharing. How about now? Can you guys see that
Yes,
now?
that's perfect.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so yeah, this is the part I mentioned. So 2 sections, multiple choice followed by free response sections. Each section has 2 parts. And then, and also some parts are calculate aloud, some parts are not calculate aloud. So basically the test start with a section without calculator and then followed by 2 parts with calculators allowed, and then finally end with a part without calculator. The total duration, again, 3 hours, 15 minutes, and with a short break between the 2 sections. Okay, now, and here is a scoring sheet. We know that for those standard tests, we have 2 types of scores. One is the raw score, and then the raw score is converted into the scaled score, which is usually the score student receive when they get the test get their test results from College Board. And we know that the total 45 multiple choice questions, each question actually carries 1.2 weight. So basically, if you answered all 45 questions correctly, and then your raw score from the multiple choice section will be multiplied by 1.5. Okay, then for the free response questions, and there are totally 6 free response questions. And then for each of then each problem has totally 9 points. And depending on, later I will show you example how you will be scored for that problem. Okay, so, and later you will see that for free response questions, you cannot just provide a final answer. You cannot just put a few numbers there. If you don't show your steps, you will not get a full credit for that problem. Okay, but each point you get in the free response question will be multiplied by 1. Okay, and then so once you have answered multiple choice sections and the free response sections, and the your weighted section 1 score and the weighted section score will be combined into a composite score. And then finally, the composite score will be converted into the AP score. That's the score you will receive when you receive your test report. Okay, so you can, okay, so the conversion chart can vary a little depending on the actual difficulty of the test, like any other standard test. But this is just like a rough guideline of if you want to get an AP score of 5, and then probably your composite, you should aim for having a composite score above 70, and then between 69 and 70, and that will be between 58 and 69, you will have a score of 4, and then you can see the further breakdown. But I think for most of students, your goal is to get at least 4, and so that you can submit your AP score while you're submitting a college application, hoping that your AP score, having a high AP score can help benefit your application, making you a stronger candidate in eyes of the admission officer. Okay, so that's for the A-B part. And how about the BC? Now, if you look at BC part, it's kind of similar, right? And then for multiple choice questions, each problem carries 1.2 weight. And then for the free response question, each point carries 1 weight. And then finally, we add up the weighted scores from sections 1 and 2, and then calculate composite score. And then, but you look at the conversion, it's nicer, or we call that, it basically is more linear for you get a score of 5 in AP Calculus BC. Okay, so this for calculating your BC score from your BC test. However, there's actually benefit of taking BC test because you will also receive an AB subscore from your BC test. So in other words, after you finish your Calculus BC test, you actually will receive 2 scores. One is the BC score and the other is AP subscore. And for AP subscore, basically, College Board will take all the problems that overlap with the AP topics, and then we'll calculate your AB score based on those questions only. Okay, so we have seen students who received like a 5 in AB subscore and 4 in BC subscore. Okay, that could happen. Okay. All right, so that's about score conversion. And the next, okay, let's look at score distribution. This is a very interesting statistic here. Okay, so you can see that this is basically from 2019. Every year, the percentage varies slightly, but actually not a huge difference. Okay, so as you can see, last year, around 19% of students achieved 5 in calculus AB. But 40% of students achieve 5 in calculus BC. Okay, so you may wonder, does that mean BC is easier than AB? Of course not. Okay, now there are two main reasons why we see such a big difference in terms of percentage. So BC, the percentage of students who receive 5 was much higher than the percentage of students who receive 5 in AB. And the first reason is that if you have to consider the sheer number of students who took these two tests, and every year there are many more students who took AB than BC. And then, so if we have like a similar number of students who received 5, if we have a much larger denominator, and of course the percentage will be less. Okay, so that's one reason. And the other reason is that usually for students who have the courage to take BC, they are stronger mathematically. That means they have usually that means they are more advanced in their math. So if you just compare the two the students population taking these tests, the usually BC students are more prepared with taking the test, or they are more advanced with the math knowledge compared to AB. Okay, so BC test is harder than AP test. As later on you will see the topics that are only tested for BC. Of course, for students who take BC test, you also need to know the knowledge covered in AB. And here are some most challenging questions based on the recent tests. And so our College Board analyzed the percentage of accuracy for different types of topics. And here's basically where the students tend to miss. So basically these are related rates, rate of change problems, like these are word problems, separable indifferentiation, integrating the apparating integrals. And for BC part, these consistently are challenging topics for BC students, series, parametric particle motion, and the polar. Okay, so later on, I will show you some of the examples from those topics. Okay, so let's get some idea of what main topics are covered in AP Calculus. For each AP test, College Board gives a list of main ideas, what they call main ideas. Okay, so that means you really have to know what main ideas will be tested for whatever AP test that you plan to take. For Calculus AB, there are 3 main ideas, particularly limits and the continuity, derivatives, and the integrals and the fundamental theorem calculus. And for BC, there's one more main idea, which is the series. But later on, you will see even for derivatives and the integrals, BC have additional subtopics under these 2 main ideas. Okay, so so here is a kind of a rough description of most important calculus AP question types. In my classes, I actually go much deeper with the topics listed here, because for each of the topics or the question types here, there are more subtopics or subtype of questions. Okay, so definitely you need to know how to calculate limits based on using algebra, algebraically, graphically, or numerically. And you need to know how to calculate derivatives, anti-derivatives, in the definite integrals, and the application of derivatives. And this is where students really need to know the meaning of the derivatives and know how to apply the derivatives in solving different types of questions, particularly deriving the equations of lines, tangential functions, how to approximate, evaluate using linear approximation. Again, related rates, solving different word problems, optimization, usually finding the minimum or maximum value of something, and the particle motion, particularly how dispersion, velocity, and accelerations are related. Okay, and then students also need to know how to calculate antiderivatives and the definite integrals. And for AB, you only need to know how to calculate antiderivatives using basic rules and or substitution. Okay, but for BC, and they require more. And the applications of integrals, particularly how to find the areas and volumes and bounded by some functions, using Riemann sum to estimate integrals, calculating average values of the function, and the particle motion again. Okay, and finally, students really have to be very familiar with some very important calculus theorems, including intermediate value theorem, extreme value theorem, mean value theorem, and the two fundamental theorems of calculus. Okay, so if there are students listening today, I hope when you see those topics, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, if there's some topics that you feel you don't actually know what they are, and that means you really need to go back to review the topics. Okay, you started taking your AP classes last August. This is already the beginning of March. It has been a few months already. And usually teachers go by the go over those topics very fast. So if you feel if you feel that you have forgotten some earlier topics, and you actually have to go back. Okay, so here is a free response question taken from the 2019 test. And as you can see, again, like I said, that in AP Calculus BC, a lot of students struggle with related rates problem. Okay, so here's a related rates problem. I usually tell students that for you to be an effective learner, you actually want to find patterns in questions. So whenever you see a new problem, you are not tested with a new concept. It's just a different application of the same concept. If you can find the theme or the essence of a concept, you can find a pattern of the type questions. You just follow the same steps and with the different values or different variables. So for example, for related rates problem, I always tell students, you have to go through the following steps in order to solve a rate of change problem. Number one, you have to list out for what variable whose rate of change is given. And for which variable the rate of change is the one we need to find out. Okay, that's the first thing. You have to write it down. And then second step, which is probably the most important step, is to write a function that connects the variable whose rate of change is given and the variable whose rate of change needs to be solved. Okay, so once we have that function, and then the third step is taking a derivative of both sides. And then if you see more than one variable, that means you have to write, because you cannot have more than one variable in one equation. You cannot solve it. So that means you have to replace one variable as a function of whatever the variable that you need to find out. And then the remaining becomes the calculation. Okay, so if you always follow those steps, I'm pretty sure you can solve all the rate of change problem in AP Calculus AB. Okay, so if I use this as an example, the question tells us the rate of change of height and asks us to find the rate of change of the volume of water, right? So then we have to write an equation that shows how volume and height are related. So here's the equation. And then here we have R and H. We need to keep H, so we're looking for R. And in this case, the problem tells what is R, which is 1 based on, because 2 feet is the diameter of the base circle, and then that means radius 1. And then if you simplify the top function, so you can see that V basically is pi times H. So once you have that function, the next step is to take the derivative from both sides, and then you can go to solve the problem. Okay, and then okay, so on the right side of the rubrics I'm showing you is how you will be scored. So like I said earlier, for each multiple choice question has a total of 9 points. And the question like whether you will get a full mark for that problem, then the 9 points for that problem depends on whether you show the key steps when you solve the problem. Okay, so it says that while you have to have an answer, of course, you have to go through that derivative, and then you have to show your answer with units. If you only show an answer without units, by the way, this is a very common mistake I've seen among my students. They simply put negative pi over 5 without putting the unit. For a word problem, you have to have a unit, because a word problem is a real application problem. And then in real life, there's no number without a unit. Okay, so therefore, you have to show the unit. If you don't show unit, you will only have you will only get 1 point in this problem. Okay, so that's part A, and then continue to part B, and then this is another rate of change. But this time it asks for whether the rate of change of height of water with respect to time is increasing or decreasing. Again, for this type of question, and that's, you have to know that in order to evaluate whether function is increasing or decreasing, you just take first derivative. Right? If first derivative is positive, that means the function is increasing. If the first derivative is negative, that means this is decreasing. So you just take the derivative over dh over dt. Okay, so that's again, I can change the problem to for other variables and ask you whether this function is increasing or decreasing. But underlying math is the same. You take the derivative of the function to find out the sign of that derivative, positive or negative. Okay, so again, you have to like show you step by step, like to do the derivative, and then you have to do the derivative correctly, and finally, you have to conclude the answer. You cannot just put a number here. You cannot just say, oh, okay, so I find this 1 over 200, and then without explaining what your answer tells you. You have to go back to write a complete sentence to show that. And based on the number 1 over 200, because it's positive, then we conclude the rate of change of the height is increasing. Okay, so basically, again, you have to write English words, sentences to conclude your answer. You cannot just write numbers there. And here's another one. This is a problem where majority student missed. This is a separable differentiation. Okay, so again, you have to like first separate the variables h and the t, and then take integral on both parts and follow steps. Okay, so this is a free response question from the last year where most of students miss, and that problem actually had a pretty low accuracy. Okay, so now let's move on to the BC part. And like I said, Calculus BC has an additional main topic series. Okay, so you only see series in the BC topic. But even for the derivatives and the integral main ideas, which appear in the Calculus AB test. For BC students, you will see additional subtopics under these two main ideas. In particular for derivatives, you will see vector, parametric functions, or function expressed in polar. You also need to know how to use Euler's method. For integral, for integrals, and these are the additional topics for BC students: improper integrals, integral by parts, and the partial fractions. You also need to know how to find areas and arc length of parametric functions and polar function, and the logistic growth model. And of course, there's a bunch of other things. Okay, so I think for students who are currently taking a Calculus BC at school, probably you are somewhere either learning series now or learning the vector-based function, parametric functions. But I can tell you, based on my past teaching experience with BC students, these are most challenging parts for students. So basically, it's the C part actually more challenging than the AB part. Okay, so, but unfortunately, you actually definitely gonna see those problems. These problems accounts for like 40% of the entire test. Okay, so 60% of the problems you would see in the BC test are AP topics, and the 40% are BC specific topics. Okay, so make sure that you master those topics very well. Okay, so here is a summary of the topics with highest probability of appearing in BC free response questions. Now, for the multiple choice questions, like they kind of follow the similar pattern, but not in this percentage. But for free response questions, 100% you will see a big problem with totally 9 points coming from polar, vector, parametric functions. Definitely gonna see a problem from series of sequences. More likely, not 100%, but close to 100%. Like you will see problem from area volume, slope field differential equations. And then these are the other problems that also commonly occur. Okay, there are some miscellaneous topics that can come anywhere in the test. But again, making sure that you know answer those problems that have high probability of appearing in the BC test. Okay, all right, so again, so I'm showing you a BC free response question from last year. Again, for probably there's some students taking BC test have not got to this part. So don't worry, I'm not gonna go into detail. I just want to show you the type questions that, the types of questions that most students feel challenging in the past year. Okay, so you definitely need to know how to use how to write a Taylor series and a Taylor polynomial, and this is a kind of 100% question, and you're gonna see this type of question in your own test in this year. Okay, so and then this problem they gave us a graph and then a table that shows the different degrees of derivative of this function, and the first problem asks us to write third-degree Taylor polynomial for f. Okay, so this problem actually is not. This problem is easy as long as you remember how to write a Taylor polynomial. Okay, so in my test, I usually, in my class, I usually tell students what are the very important formulas they have to memorize. Okay, because there's no time to, you don't have time to derive that during the test. For some topics, you don't have to memorize blindly because you will have enough time to derive that if for some reason you forget. Certain things you do have to memorize because deriving that during the test will be very time consuming if even possible. Okay, so yeah, so you have to be quite familiar with Taylor polynomials to answer this problem. If you know this problem is quite easy. Similarly, you have to be quite familiar with the Maclaurin series. And while there are some, you have to be familiar with 5 most important Maclaurin series, including 1 over 1 minus x, e to the x is one of them, sine x, cosine x, and the natural log of 1 plus x. Okay, so it's basically because these series have high chance of appearing in a test. And then, okay, so this is a third problem. They ask you to use Taylor polynomial again to find this. So this problem involves both taking the integral as well as knowing how to use Taylor polynomial. Okay, so again, I want to go over those problems in detail. And then finally, and here I just want to say that, again, based on my experience teaching students, 90% of students, when they first came to me, had tremendous difficulty with figuring out the error bound. There are only 2 error bounds that you need to know. Okay, maybe your teacher at the school tell you more error bounds, but for the standard test in May, you only need to know 2 error bounds. Memorizing those formulas may not be very intuitive, so it's better to understand them. Okay, so this problem tests your alternating series error bound, but also you have to be quite familiar with the Lagrange error bound as well, because sometimes they test a Lagrange error bound, sometimes they test the alternating series error bound. Okay, you will not only see those problems in free response questions, there's also high chance that you will see them in the multiple choice section. Okay. Okay, so that's the problem. Okay, and then at the end of today's seminar, I want to kind of remind you these are the common mistakes students tend to make. So try and avoid those mistakes. Okay, or pay special attention to avoiding those mistakes. Okay, now, like I said, I have seen a lot of students, if for students who don't really know how your answers will be scored in free response questions, they tend not show enough work. Okay, so that takes practice. Probably some students are very, they can do their calculation very fast mentally, and they tend to skip steps. Okay, it's okay if it's if it's a multiple choice question. I mean, nobody cares how you get to that right answer. For free response questions, don't worry about you writing too much. Okay, it's okay you write too much. Nobody will take your deducted points if you write too much, but you will be deduct points if you don't show enough work. And then a second type of common mistake student make is always forgetting writing the constant term in antiderivative. And then similarly, a student tend to omit dy over dx in implicit differentiation. The two concepts that students tend to confuse are the average rate of change and the average rate of function. Now, the average rate of change is the slope, okay, average value function. To find the average value function, you have to first integral. You have to first integrate the function and then divide it by the interval where the function is defined. Yes, busy students tend to confuse with sequences and with series. Now, sequences show the individual numbers, where series is always the sum of those individual terms in the sequence. Velocity, speed, for two concepts that both AB and BC students tend to confuse with. Velocity has direction and magnitude, so therefore velocity can be negative. However, speed is the absolute value of velocity. Speed can never be negative. Okay, it doesn't matter in which direction you go. And then dispersion is the integral velocity, and the distance will be the integral of speed. Okay, this Dr. already knows what topics students tend to confuse with, and they intentionally test us with those topics. Okay, so they will catch the students who don't pay attention to those concepts. Another common mistake I've seen among students, again, this is a BC topic, not checking the endpoint of interval convergence. One thing especially for free response questions, please don't round up your intermediate answers too soon, because we know that the roundup error do accumulate. So you would rather keep the expression, or you just take the complete answer from your calculator. Okay, so just don't round up intermediate result. You round up at the very end. Usually at the end, you want to round 3 decimals after, or like 3 digits after the decimal, unless the problem indicates otherwise. Okay, just by default, if we have to round up answers, just leave 3 digits after the decimal. Okay, so there are just about 2 months left, and I hope you all remember when you will have the AP Calculus test. I have seen students, actually, I have helped students who took AP Calculus AB in class, but decided to challenge him herself to take the BC test in May. Okay, and you cannot take 2 tests on the same day because they are administered on at the exact same time. So May 4th. Okay, so there are only 2 months left. So what do you need to do to prepare for that? So at the beginning, I showed you some important topics in both AB and the BC test. Again, if some of the topics have skipped your mind already, and you feel that you have to go back to review those topics, you probably want to start doing that gradually. You don't want to wait till the last month, and just you may have to prepare for other AP tests. Right? So please don't wait till the last month. If you feel that some concepts have become rusty, then you have to go back review them. You also have to make sure that you do quality practice. So what is a quality practice? Don't just screen I know a lot of students buy Barron's book, and that book is helpful, but during the last 2 months, you actually would rather you will have a more effective preparation for the test if you know which topics are your weak areas. So you want to focus on those areas first, rather than like taking the book and then doing the practice like topic by topic, unless you have a lot of time preparing for the test. Okay, and also when you do the practice, instead of doing those not real, like semi-real problems, you actually want to practice with the past real test questions. Okay, because no matter like how popular a textbook or prep book is, if those questions are not from the real test questions, they may mislead you into doing the problems that you won't see in the real test. There are plenty of materials of past real tests you can do. For free response questions, they are all accessible freely online. Okay, and even for multiple choice problems, and I give students, even for individual topics, I give them, I basically extracted from past real test for that particular topic. And after reviewing all the individual topics, and then we do mock tests with real test questions. So we want to make sure that all the questions you do and all the questions my students do are from past real test questions. Okay, if you can do those questions well, you can get 500%. And then, like I said earlier, there's some formulas and the theorems that you do have to memorize. Again, this is a time test, right? And I don't like students memorize things blindly. And so I usually tell them the reason behind those formulas and theories, which can help them memorize better. But during the test, again, for some theories formulas, because we don't have time to derive that during the test, it's better just to memorize them. And I could give them a cheat sheet and ask them to print out and put on the wall beside your bed. And every night when you go to bed and read those formulas once, and when you get up and read those formulas once. Okay, so at least you need to maintain that memory until May 4th, until test day. And after that, if you forget, that's okay, because you can always have the reference. Okay, and your graphing calculator is your best friend during the test, because in addition to your pencil and eraser, you can only bring your graphing calculator, right? But you do need to know when and how to use your graphing calculator. And I don't want to overly rely on your calculator because, well, first of all, if you can, for simple calculation, you really don't need your graphing calculator. But for certain things, you do need to. You have to practice how to graph a function with an arbitrary viewing window. Okay, I've seen students who have trouble graphing a function, but you do need to practice that because you definitely need that in the test. And know how to find the zeros of functions, and how to, sometimes you actually, if you get stuck with calculating the derivative of function, you actually can use a calculator to help you, but you don't need, it's not necessary. You do need to know how to calculate the value of a definite integral, okay? I kind of guarantee that you will see such a problem in your test. You have to use a calculator to answer a definite integral problem because you cannot do that analytically. Oh, one more thing, make sure that your calculator is set to the reader mode, okay? Because you may see some trig functions in the test, and also you may see word problems involving trig functions in AP Calculus, in the AP Calculus test, and all the angles there will be in the reading mode. So you don't have to worry about switching to the degree mode. So before you go to the test, make sure that calculator is set to the reading mode. Okay, and then finally, make sure that while you're preparing for the test and while working on the free response questions, get used to showing all your work. Again, you can write more, but you cannot write less. Okay, make sure that you show all the important steps, you show all the intermediate steps of the problem. And for word problems, making sure you also show the unit. Don't just put a number here without unit. Okay, otherwise that number is meaningless. Okay, so yeah, and that's all the information I want to share with you today. That's just a kind of a glimpse of what you need to know for that test. Okay,
Awesome.
yeah, so we hope to see you in our coming classes where I can show you the details of each topic and also give you the practice for the topics that you feel that you need more practice on, and so you can like strengthen in those areas.
Thank you, Dr. Yan. Did you have time for maybe like 1 or 2 questions for a quick Q&A? Any chance?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll go with the 2 that are pretty simple, straightforward. One question we have here is, what scores do I need to get on the exam to receive college credit for my calculus?
Oh, okay, so well, that really depends on which college you go to. I know that if a student, if a college accepts the credit transfer, you should get at least 3. Okay, but some very highly competitive college, for example, Stanford, they don't take any credit from your AP classes. Yeah, so at least like minimum 3. It's like a passing. It's a passing grade. Yeah.
Thank you. I hope that answers one of the questions.
Yeah, that so basically a short answer is varies, but at least minimum 3.
Okay. And then here we have another one. Does my student have to be in a course or whatever course they're taking to take the AP exam for it?
Oh, no, not at all. Yeah, I just said if you don't take AP class at your school, I'm not so sure whether school would allow you to take the AP test at that school. But you can always sign up for the test at some other centers. And in fact, there are some centers at the Bay Area that will allow you to take AP test there. Yeah, if your school don't does not offer the space. Yeah, but yes, you can definitely take any AP test. We actually have a lot of students. Now, for those who missed our seminar last Sunday, we had two students. One was accepted by Yale, the other accepted by MIT. And one student took 16 APs and the other took 17 APs. They didn't take those APs because their schools offered them so many APs. In fact, they took a lot of AP tests by self-studying those topics.
Thank you, Dr. Yan. I'm going to go ahead and show some more about the AP courses that you have upcoming up. So can I go ahead and share my screen?
Yeah.
Thank you. Awesome. Let me go ahead and see here. Yes, we're going to move over to AP here. Yeah, so this upcoming March, Dr. Yan will be our leading teacher for both our AP Calculus and AP Statistics courses. So if you're taking either AP Calculus AB or AP Calculus BC, which is these two right here, let me go ahead and show you. Both of our BC and AB courses offer both 20 hours of preparation per class. Students meet every Saturday to go over topic strategies, complete mock AP exams, and review with Dr. Yan personally. Dr. Yan is the leading instructor for both of these calculus courses. Let me go ahead and show you here. So this is just like the rough breakdown. Both classes have 20 hours of preparation in total, and you meet every Saturday. That's for AP Calculus, but also for AP Statistics, Dr. Yan will be the lead for that. This course is 12.5 hours in preparation for the statistics course. Let me go ahead and show you here. Yes, so our AP class structures are great for students looking to develop effective AP strategies, as well as work with real practice tests that we make ourselves and go through a guided review with our teachers, such as Dr. Yan. And I also wanted to point out that we do have an SAT 1500 plus mock test strategy review course that's coming up in late March, so March 28th. Dr. Yan is also one of our featured instructors for this class. And if you are planning on taking the SAT on May 2nd, this is a good and highly recommended course for the students that need strategies on boosting their scores. This class right here, this is the breakdown of that class. It's primarily focused on providing multiple mock tests created from the real SAT exam, and we help you learn test-taking strategies from Dr. Yan, June, and Amy, which is our 3 distinguished instructors. So if you are interested in any of these 3 courses, AP or SAT, we have this slide here for you to contact us. Let me go ahead and share my screen. So this right here is our WeChat that you can contact us and send us a message versus our phone that you can go ahead and call if you have direct inquiries that you may have. But if you are unsure about what preparation you need for your student or your child, we can definitely help you. Feel free to book your appointment with us. We have a free 30-minute consultation, and we can help you figure out what support that you need academically. And as always, we thank you so much for supporting our open class, and thank you for coming today to watch. I'll go ahead and leave this on the screen for 5 to 10 minutes, and yeah, thank you.